The fairy tale crumbled, didn't it? Like a gingerbread house left out in the rain. We all wanted to believe. The world loves a good story. A princess rescued, a happily ever after defying centuries of tradition. Meghan Markle, the American actress, swept into the British royal family, a breath of fresh air, a modernizing force. But somewhere along the line, the narrative fractured. Cracks appeared in the carefully constructed image, and a persistent voice, abrasive and unrelenting, began to chip away at the facade. That voice belonged to Piers Morgan. He was the pantomime villain, the one the tabloids loved to hate, but he also possessed a keen eye for inconsistencies and a platform to broadcast his doubts to millions. Morgan's accusations, particularly those surrounding Meghan's pregnancies, weren't just whispers in the echo chamber of social media. They were a full-throated roar broadcast across morning television. He didn't mince words. He didn't offer polite caveats. He went for the jugular. The initial reaction was predictable. Outrage, accusations of misogyny, the familiar cries of racism were hurled. How dare he attack a pregnant woman? How dare he question her motives? The narrative was firmly in place. Meghan, the victim, besieged by a relentless and prejudiced media. But Morgan, a seasoned media veteran, knew how to play the game. He understood the power of repetition, the cumulative effect of doubt. He wasn't trying to win a popularity contest. He was aiming to dismantle a carefully crafted image brick by brick. He started with the small details, the seemingly insignificant discrepancies. The shifting size and position of the baby bump, the conflicting accounts of morning sickness versus public appearance, the sudden, unexplained switch from a planned home birth to a hospital delivery. Individually, these might seem like minor inconsistencies, easily dismissed as the vagaries of pregnancy or the pressures of royal life, but Morgan presented them as a pattern, a deliberate attempt to mislead the public. He pointed to the carefully staged photographs, the strategically lit baby bump, the whispered stories that seemed just believable enough to pass without scrutiny. He argued that Meghan was controlling the narrative, manipulating public perception with the skill of a seasoned actress. It was a harsh accusation, one that challenged the very foundation of Meghan's public image. Then came the alleged documents. Internal memos, scheduling notes, hospital records that supposedly contradicted Meghan's public account. These documents, leaked by an unnamed insider, were the dynamite that blew the story wide open. They painted a picture of a pregnancy managed with meticulous precision, a performance orchestrated for maximum emotional impact. Dates didn't match, appearances didn't align with trimesters. Hospital visits supposedly coincided with photographs of Meghan across town. Morgan presented this evidence with theatrical flair, slamming papers on his desk, his voice rising in indignation. "I'm sick of being told to accept whatever version Meghan Markle invents," he declared. He wasn't just questioning her honesty. He was challenging the entire narrative that had been carefully constructed around her. He was daring her to respond, to offer a credible explanation for the inconsistencies. But the response was silence. A deafening, unsettling silence. That silence, in many ways, was the most damaging indictment of all. The contrast with Catherine, Princess of Wales, couldn't have been starker. Catherine, a picture of serene grace, emerged from the Lindo wing hours after giving birth, perfectly coiffed and radiant, presenting her newborn to the world. It was a display of openness, a gesture of respect for royal tradition, a shared moment of joy with the public. Meghan, on the other hand, shrouded her pregnancy in secrecy, controlling access and information with an iron grip. The two approaches highlighted a fundamental difference in their understanding of royal duty and public perception. One embraced transparency, the other cultivated mystery. And in the court of public opinion, transparency often wins the day. It echoed through the digital landscape, a void where explanations should have been. It fueled the firestorm of speculation. If there was nothing to hide, why not address the allegations head on? Why allow the narrative to be shaped by her detractors? The silence seemed calculated, a strategic decision to avoid further scrutiny, but it backfired spectacularly. Social media, once a bastion of support, began to turn. Doubts crept into the comment sections. eroding the unwavering loyalty that Meghan had previously enjoyed. The hashtags shifted. The memes took a darker turn. The narrative was slipping away. Celebrity allies, usually quick to defend Meghan against perceived injustices, remained conspicuously silent. The usual chorus of support was replaced by a deafening quiet, a clear indication that even those closest to her were hesitant to wade into the controversy. The stakes were too high. The evidence, however circumstantial, was too compelling. Harry, the self-proclaimed protector of his family, was equally silent. This was perhaps the most surprising aspect of the entire saga. He had built his post-royal identity around defending his wife from the relentless attacks of the British media. He had spoken passionately about the need to protect her mental health and well-being. Yet, when faced with specific allegations about her pregnancy, he remained mute. His silence spoke volume. It suggested that he either condoned her actions or was powerless to defend them. Either way, it damaged his credibility and further fueled the perception that the Sussexes were more concerned with controlling their image than with telling the truth. The Oprah interview, once considered the ultimate act of defiance, was now subjected to intense scrutiny. Every word, every gesture, every tear was analyzed and dissected. The pauses seemed too deliberate, the emotions too perfectly calibrated. The carefully crafted narrative of victimhood began to unravel under the weight of suspicion. Morgan, never one to miss an opportunity, seized on this shift in public opinion. He dissected the interview frame by frame, highlighting the inconsistencies and contradictions. He argued that Meghan was a skilled performer, capable of manipulating emotions with the precision of a seasoned actress. He wasn't just questioning her honesty, he was challenging her entire persona. He lined up the Oprah interview against Meghan's earlier podcast appearances and other interviews. The same pacing, the same cadence, the same buildup of emotion followed by dramatic release. It was a performance perfected over time, designed to provoke a specific reaction. The most controversial aspect of Morgan's critique was his assertion that Meghan had weaponized motherhood, using her pregnancy as a shield against criticism. By centering her public persona around vulnerability and the struggles of being an expectant mother under media scrutiny, she had created a cultural force field that made it almost impossible to question her motive. Any criticism, no matter how valid, was immediately framed as an attack on a pregnant woman. Any attempt to seek clarification was portrayed as bullying. It was a brilliant strategy, but it ultimately backfired. The constant invocation of motherhood as a defense against scrutiny created a sense of unease, a feeling that something was being hidden. If everything was real, if the story held up, why was it necessary to constantly invoke the vulnerability of pregnancy? Why couldn't Meghan simply address the allegations directly and offer a credible explanation for the inconsistency? The silence, the secrecy, the carefully crafted narrative of victimhood all contributed to a growing sense of distrust. By the time all the pieces were laid out, the photographs highlighting inconsistencies, the alleged documents, the strange shifts in the story, and the deafening silence, the controversy had grown into something far bigger than debates over pregnancy photos or hospital timelines. It had become a battle over trust, over credibility, over whether anything Meghan and Harry said could be taken at face value. A person cannot be in two places at the same time. It's a simple equation, a fundamental truth. Yet, the alleged scheduling conflicts presented by Morgan suggested something impossible. Hospital appointments scheduled on the very days Meghan was photographed attending public events across London. Not fleeting visits, not tight scheduling, but full days. The paperwork placed her in one location while photographic evidence showed her somewhere else entirely. The claim that she had repeatedly shared, through trusted confidantes and carefully placed stories, her desire for a home birth at Frogmore Cottage only added fuel to the fire. It aligned perfectly with the carefully constructed image of a natural, private, and personal experience, a quiet rejection of royal tradition. The public embraced the narrative without question. Then, the abrupt announcement, a hospital birth at the exclusive Portland in London. No explanation, no mention of medical advice, no acknowledgement that the carefully crafted story had suddenly veered off course, just silence. A silence that screamed louder than any denial. The birth announcement itself became a flash. The palace, caught completely off guard, released a statement that was almost immediately contradicted by Harry and Meghan's own version of events. They had been deliberately kept in the dark, set up to fail. Morgan pounced, arguing that it revealed Meghan's need for absolute control, her willingness to manipulate any situation to serve her image, even if it meant making the palace look dishonest. The leaked internal memos, if accurate, painted a devastating picture. Palace staff allegedly bending over backwards to meet Meghan's every demand, rearranging schedules, canceling commitments, working double shifts, and yet, she presented herself as abandoned, isolated, and unsupported. The document suggested not a woman ignored, but a woman indulged beyond reason, who then turned around and claimed victimhood. The question wasn't whether she faced pressure, it was whether she used motherhood as a tool, a shield against criticism, a means of controlling the narrative, and the silence, the unwavering silence, only amplified the doubts. The damage was done, not necessarily from any single proven allegation, but from the accumulation of inconsistencies, the piling up of doubts, the shifting timelines, the alleged scheduling conflicts, the staged photo opportunities, the pre-written announcements, the deafening silence when questions arose. It all created a picture that millions of people struggled to reconcile with the victim narrative. The contrast with William and Catherine was inescapable. Catherine, open, transparent, sharing those intimate moments with the public. Meghan, shrouded in secrecy, changing the story, reacting with anger when questioned. Secrecy breeds suspicion. Inconsistencies breed doubt. And when questions are met with silence, people connect their own dots, draw their own conclusions. Those conclusions hardened over time, creating a kind of damage that may never fully heal. It wasn't a scandal that exploded overnight. It seeped slowly, quietly, persistently into the public consciousness until it became impossible to ignore. And once trust is broken, once credibility is cracked, it doesn't easily return. Every future claim is examined more closely. Every emotional appeal meets resistance instead of sympathy. The benefit of the doubt disappears entirely. That was Morgan's ultimate goal, not to prove any single allegation beyond a shadow of a doubt, but to plant enough questions that people would never fully believe her again. Now, every time she speaks, every time she tells her story, part of the audience isn't listening to understand. They're listening to catch the next inconsistency, to spot the next contradiction, to find the next clue that maybe the whole thing was more performance than truth. The fairy tale, it seemed, had become a cautionary tale.